Hello everybody, I'm Faye Goodman, and I'll be shepherding you through the next 5 weeks of Intro to Cultural Anthropology here at Ashford. I'm super excited to start this class. Like many of you, I was a non-traditional student, and this is the class that opened up my mind to the wider world around us and made me very excited about studying anthropology as a life. So, I'm very thrilled. Thrilled to meet all of you. Thrilled to move forward with the class. We're going to go super fast for 5 weeks, but every minute of it is going to be fascinating and interesting and mind-stretching and sometimes challenging. So I do have a couple of quick tips for you as we move into the first week of class. This is my 10th time, I think, teaching Intro to Cultural Anthropology here at Ashford. So I've got a firm grasp on where students tend to go wrong with this class, and I'd like to share those with you in hopes that we can all avoid those pitfalls together. First of all, this is only a 5-week class. It's super important to get the assignments in on time. I'm sure you've already had a chance to read my faculty expectations. They're on our left margin. And also the announcement in our announcement sections titled Discussion Guidelines. So, but in a nutshell, here's what it is. For your discussions, your initial post is due on Thursday, and your peer responses are due by Monday. I do not accept late submissions of either your initial post or your peer responses. And here's why. It's not because I want to be a bad guy. It's because this class goes super fast. And the discussions we have together are the equivalent of being in class with one another. And that discussion only happens in the week that it's happening. If you submit your material after everybody else has left the week, then there's nobody there to talk with you anymore. Nobody to read your thoughts, nobody to comment on them, and you're sort of missing the point of the discussion. So, for discussions and all of our quizzes, they are due on the day that is listed in the faculty expectations. Okay? Thursday initial post, Monday night for pretty much everything else. Now, you'll notice in the faculty expectations, it does say that for our large written assignments, you can turn in those assignments up to 3 days after the day that they are due for 10% less points each day. This means, just for clarification, if you're required to submit that assignment to Waypoint, that is one of the assignments that you may have some extra time on if you need it. But while you're thinking about that being the case, I want to remind you that 10% is a full letter grade. So each day that you turn that in after Monday night, you're going to get a full letter grade less. So if you do A work, but you don't turn it in until Thursday, the very last day it can be turned in, the very best grade you're going to get on that is a C, and that's if your assignment was completely perfect to start with. So keep that in mind. Turning in things on time is going to make a big difference in this class. Secondly, you're taking this class online, which means that being able to access the internet to do your assignments, to get things read and submitted to Waypoint on time is going to require a strong internet connection. So I really want to encourage you right now, today, before you start the class, to have a backup plan in place. I do not accept computer problems as a valid excuse for your work being late, because if you can't manage to get to a computer, it's the same as just not being in class at all. So set up a plan ahead of time of what you're going to do if you have computer problems. Here are some options. You could talk to a friend and say, I'm taking this class and it's super important for me to have my work in on time. I don't expect to have any difficulties, but if I do, can I run over and submit my assignment through your computer? You can think ahead of time about where your local public library is. They all have computers that you can use for free, and that's a great idea for a backup plan. Often folks can use a work computer if they really get into a crisis. I know many of you are full-time employed as well as going to school. So those are all great options, but it's good to have it in mind ahead of time and to think to yourself, I always want to be sure to leave enough time to use my backup plan. So if your assignment is due by Monday midnight, you want to make sure you're turning in all of your work on Monday early enough that if you do have some kind of computer problem, you have time to use your backup plan. Great. Another place that students tend to go awry in this class is often because they haven't been in school for a long time and doing research maybe isn't super familiar to them, that they're not entirely clear on what appropriate sources for our work means. So, just to start out, these are some of the things that are not appropriate sources for a college class. Wikipedia, encyclopedias, dictionaries, popular magazines, magazines for children. For the purposes of your final paper, journalism is not a scholarly source. You can actually use news stories in the discussions, and sometimes that helps to illustrate a point we're talking about, but it would not count as a scholarly source for our final paper. So, if you're not sure whether something you're thinking about using is a scholarly source or is acceptable, there's a great description of what appropriate sources are on our left margin. I'll also be putting up an announcement that helps clarify that. And if you're still not sure, you can send me an email. I'm happy to write back and let you know whether that source is appropriate for this class. Okay, and then here's the last thing that I want to caution you about before we start class, and that is, this is the 10th time I've taught this class. Every single time I've taught this class, there's been a student who has submitted a paper or a substantial piece of work that they have cut from the internet that was not their own original work. And I found them every time. The work that you submit is turned in automatically through Turnitin, which searches the whole internet for matches. Also, your professors get a lot of experience through the discussions at what your writing style looks like. So it's not worth it to plagiarize because you're going to get caught. If you get caught, you're going to get a 0 on that assignment, and you might get a 0 for the class. So remember, your own original work is really what we want to see here. Most specifically because we want to know what you think about what we're talking about, not what some random guy you found on the internet thinks about it. We don't care about him. We want to know what you have to say. Okay? So I want to encourage you all to not grab that interesting piece of information and put it up in our discussions or in your assignments as though you have written it. Be sure to give correct attribution, an in-text citation, and a reference at the end, and then we know that was somebody else's thoughts, and you can still share it with the class. So, sorry about the little bit of bummers, but I feel like it's a good idea to start out the class knowing where you could have trouble. And now we get to focus on all of the exciting things that we have to read over these 5 weeks. It's a lot of reading, you know, and I think it's important to acknowledge that. I know that nearly all of you are probably parents and working full-time jobs or trying to go back to school after a long time, and all of this can seem like a lot. But the cool thing about anthropology is that the research that's been done about other people is sort of like really interesting stories. There's a lot of really great stories in our book, and you get to read them. I like to say that I became an anthropologist because I read too much science fiction when I was a kid. Which, if you think about it, science fiction is about people going to a place where they've never been and learning about how those folks live with one another. That's a voyage of discovery that we all get to be on together. So let's get started. I'll look forward to talking to you again through another one of these videos next week. And in the meantime, I will see you in the classroom. And you can reach me at any time at faye.goodman@faculty.ashford.edu. There's a link at the top of our classroom, so you don't even actually need to remember that. I'm usually very quick on the turnaround with email, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. So, go read the material. Write some interesting discussions. Take some quizzes. I look forward to seeing you there. Bye now.